Electric Boogaloo.
Your one-stop podcast for Melbourne women in music.
Swiggity swaggity swoo! Welcome to Electric Boogaloo. I'm your host Theodore and I'm here with Niamh.
Yeah, we've got an awesome podcast lined up. We've got some Melbourne artists who are talking about their influences, either through artists that are Melbourne-based or even touring ones.
I had a chance to go see a Coup show recently, which is kind of a small independent thing run by females, and it's a space for female artists to kind of express themselves in like a safe environment. It was a really cool experience. I got to talk to a lot of female artists and get their perspective and experiences of what it means to be a female in the industry.
The vibes from the podcast recordings are pretty cool, and I think the women that you got to talk to definitely know their stuff.
Yeah, it was such a great experience. We've got a couple interviews here. Shall we jump in?
Let's go.
Electric Boogaloo.
So Theo, I heard you had the opportunity to interview Kat Hunter, who performs under the name Lack the Low.
Yeah, she was awesome. Had a great time.
She performs with her electronic violin sounds, which is pretty cool, and she works a lot on the Coup shows, which you guys got to go to the live gig of.
Yeah, that was great.
So let's dive into the interview.
My musical project at the moment is called Lack the Low, and it's just me playing solo. Up until recently, it was very acoustically based, so me either singing and playing guitar or playing combo organ. But lately I've been getting into the more electronic side of things, so that's where the project is kind of headed. I probably started my first band when I was about 16 and played with live bands for years and years and years, and so this whole solo thing is super new.
Yeah, how are you finding it?
Freeing in terms of logistics, in terms of not having to get 4 people in the same room, but also challenging in terms of the learning curve involved. But, you know, overall really good, yeah.
I was wondering what kind of equipment and stuff have you got in your setup?
Well, at the moment I'm using Ableton. I really should get a really good proper MIDI controller, but at the moment I've just got a MIDI keyboard and my interface, and I'd really like to start playing violin a bit more live, so I'm going to plug that in as well and incorporate that into the set. So, for example, even just working with Becky and what she does with AFA, seeing people do work with electronic music has been super influential, because until recently I didn't even know it was kind of an option, and sometimes you really have to see things in action before you believe that they're possible. And so just, you know, even being a part of the local Melbourne music scene has been really helpful with that.
Becky, she's part of the Coup project that you guys kind of run, huh? Could you tell me a little bit about that? What's your involvement with Coup and what's it all about, really?
Becky and I would have regular coffees just talking about music and how we're going with our artistic work. And for quite some time, we're thinking it would be great to do a little more work with local female artists and supporting the scene here. So I came up with the idea of doing a series of gigs, and so it all just kind of went from there. The venue that we're using is run by 2 lovely ladies called Vicky and Gabby, and I already knew them. So as soon as we decided on doing this, I knew that that was the perfect venue for it, and it went from there. The vibe in Melbourne, I found, at its best, is really friendly and is really conducive to forming a community, which is really great for Coup. I mean, everyone seems to know each other, we all get along great, and we can support each other in our projects. But at the same time, it can be difficult for bands in Australia to make it out of their own local scene. So, for example, in Australia, if you want to tour to a different city, say Sydney or Adelaide, then that's like a whole day's drive, or, you know, flights, and then how do you move your gear, and it becomes really difficult, and you don't know if anyone's going to go to your show because maybe you haven't been played on the local radio station, and it all becomes very, very difficult unless you have some serious backing from high up. Whereas in the UK, that system is completely different. Like, the nearest town might be an hour's drive away, and the scenes are so crossed over between cities that you're basically guaranteed an audience. So, yeah, touring is so much easier in the UK and making it bigger is a lot easier. But in Australia, there tends to be a really good vibe around just starting up for the first time because it means that you feel really supported, and hopefully Koo will contribute to that vibe even more.
So, to what extent do you feel that your gender has defined your experiences performing live?
To me, the difference was very obvious when I first started playing live. When I was about 16 and I was helping organise a lot of local freezer events, so music events for all ages. And most of the people who played at those events or who attended were all male. I actually, at the time, was a part of an all-girl kind of garage rock band, and we were, like, often, if we played, the only females that played in the whole night and just about the only females that were there some nights. And we got kind of a funny response for that because some people thought that that was like super awesome, but at the same time, whenever we were described, we were called, oh, that girl band, or oh, that band with those girls in it. Do you know what I mean? There was always using the word girl, which is fine, and that's part of the reality because it was so contrasting to what existed. But at the same time, it felt difficult to have our music taken seriously because that was always the way discussions about our music was prefaced. That definitely showed me a lot about lack of gender equity, I suppose, in the music industry. As I've gotten older, I feel like things have balanced out a bit more, but I feel like it is still difficult to be feminine and feel that that's accepted in the music industry. And I think that that will be true for trans women and for just effeminate people in general. I feel like that's gotten better in recent years and will only get better. But from my own experience, sometimes in order to get by in a gig, to be taken seriously, you have to be a real tomboy. And luckily, I'm good at that. But I don't want that to have to be a restriction that says this is what makes it okay for you to play music. You know, you should be able to wear a pink tutu no matter your gender and still get up on stage and play if that's your self-expression. So I feel like there is still a long way to go in terms of that side of things, but I'm optimistic that things are getting better in terms of the representation of women in music.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us, Kat. That was a lovely experience, and I wish you all the best for the future.
No worries, Theo. Thanks very much.
Electric Boogaloo.
So we're just about to jump into an interview with artist Kaya from Canberra. We had the pleasure of listening to her do her thing at the Koo show. She plays a really wide variety of eclectic and experimental electronic beats.
And she's done a little bit of work with Becky too. Becky's a member of the Electric Boogaloo crew. She's also an influential artist within the up-and-coming music scene.
All right, let's jump in.
Kaya,
Hello.
can you tell me a bit about your musical project and how you put together your live show?
At the moment, it's just a bit of a large Ableton set that is loaded in with a couple of drum racks and backing tracks. Yeah, I guess it's sort of like a hybrid between DJ and performer.
Have you had any experiences lately that have influenced the songs that you're writing and how you're composing?
Not really. Like, I'll usually just have concepts that I sort of relate together and they sort of float around in my head until something really simple happens, like probably on the tram, and then I'll sort of go from there.
Before you moved to Melbourne, because you're not a Melbourneite originally, are you?
No.
Where are you from?
Canberra.
Did you have public transport epiphanies in Canberra as well?
Not really. I used to drive everywhere, so that time was usually just like listening to my favourite song and like belting it out. So
Yeah.
now I have to not belt it out and think.
Yeah, and think about music instead of not crashing into people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sweet. Oh, that's cool. Trams, an inspirational Melbourne icon. Have you had any opportunities to see international artists while you've been living here in Melbourne?
I saw Grimes recently and she was so great. Just her energy was crazy. There was this like amazing point where she was singing Ave Maria, like a cover.
Whoa.
And it was so beautiful. But I don't know what happened. She must have like got a frog in her throat or just like had a bit of a vocal fry or something, and she just like coughed and spluttered for a minute and just like made everyone laugh, and then just like went straight back into it. And I just thought it was like the best thing because she just seemed so much realer, but also funny.
So have you had any kind of inspiration for your songwriting from artists like Grimes that you've seen on tour here?
When I'm seeing them play, I'm more watching how they interact with the audience and like their performance and how they're trying to relate to you, and not so much songwriting when I see them. I usually analyse that if I'm listening to them on the...
Yeah, it's more a private kind of thing. So are there any particular kind of tips or moves that you've taken away for your performances from these touring artists' performances?
I think it's just like about being relatable. I think people want to know the artist and the performer. So if you can connect with them, I think that's most of your job. You know what I mean?
Totally. So is this your first time playing here at Koo?
No, this is my second performance, and actually my second performance under my stage name, Kaya.
Wow,
Yeah.
That's huge. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So do you have kind of an impression of Koo that's distinct from, I guess, like other live shows that you've seen? Like, is the vibe kind of different?
It's a really safe and supportive environment to try new things. And for me, I'm just getting back into performing. And I've never performed as a solo act before. So it's like a really good place to find my bearings.
Have you felt like being a girl has defined your experiences on stage particularly?
I think like as a female, there's like a lot of pressure to be good at everything. You have to be well presented and tech savvy as well, because otherwise people don't take you seriously. There's a lot at risk as a female, and if you're not well presented, they think that you don't care about performing, whereas if you were looking at a guy who maybe had bad hair or a dirty shirt on, you'd just be like, wow, he really cares about the music, you know?
So what are you hoping to get out of tonight?
I guess like just more confidence and just sort of to know myself better on stage as well.
It's going to be sweet.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Look at Boogaloo.
So we had Zyla Aria come into the studio as well. She does electronic pop, which is really cool. She's the front woman for her band alongside her drummer / producer Elliot. So let's hear what she had to say.
Sweetie. So, Shweta, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
I'd like for you to tell me a little bit about your project, Zylo Aria, and how you put together your live show.
Yeah, sure. Zylo Aria started probably close to 3 years ago, actually, when I first met my producer, Elliot Travis. I found his vague ad on Gumtree, and I was just like, you make some beats, send me some stuff, and he did, and the day I got it, I think it was like 10 p.m, and then I was like, I'm going to write a song to this, and then by 3 a.m. I'd sent him something, and he loved it. And then, we just kind of rolled with it, and we've made a bit of music over 3 years, and now we're just starting to get in the live stuff now, and it's so exciting to finally get the music out there. How could you let me?
Have you seen any international artists here in Melbourne? Or, would you like to tell us about any experience you had at a gig that might have influenced you?
When I saw London Grammar play, this was at Falls Festival a couple of years ago, I just remember like tears welling in my eyes. It was so beautiful, and I felt in tune with what they were doing, and I'd love to do that at some stage and have other people feel like that at my gig, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I saw your show last week, and I thought it was really cool. Like electronic drums and then combining them with acoustic drums, creating different like characteristics that I never would have expected.
I know, same with us actually, because we were so set on having everything electronic, and then like at the time we didn't have the funds or whatever to get an octopad, and I'm like, I just want to play our song. So like we just got in the studio, and he's like, all right, I'm just going to jump on the kit. And then we started playing and we're like, whoa, this actually sounds really good. Maybe let's try that and it'll be much easier to start with, and then we can see where it goes from there.
So was that the first time you played at Koo last week?
Yes, that was the first time I played at Koo, and it was such an amazing experience. Like the people, the vibe, the venue, it was just such a nice vibe. Everyone was super friendly and really interested and really listening to the music, which is not something you get all the time, you know. You know, the environment of female artists was really, really nice, and we do need to help each other out, you know. So that was good. And the venue, like I've never played in a venue like that before, and I wouldn't have associated it with a musical venue. And I was talking to Vicky and Gabby who run the venue, and they were saying there's such a variety of things that go on there. There's like meditation, yoga, and I really feel like the vibes from that kind of stay in the venue and just added a really nice element to the venue for live gigs. So quite unique, I would say.
I want to ask you, to what extent do you feel that your gender has defined your experiences when performing?
To be honest, with the live stuff, at this stage, I haven't seen too much of an impact being a female, but we've just started at the moment. Especially around the electronic music scene, there is definitely that divide, I feel, as far as production goes and even sound engineering. You really don't come across many females. That was one thing when I first met Becky as a sound engineer. It was kind of like a breath of fresh air because I'd never seen a female do that. So that was one of the reasons I thought this would be great to work with another female, because I really don't. I feel like I'm surrounded by males whenever I'm making music. So I want to see that more. And I think it is happening more and more. You do see a few female artists like Kuchka, who produces her own music, and it's beautiful what she makes. You are seeing it more and more, and I hope that trend continues.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for coming in, and I really enjoyed this. Hope you have much success in the future, and I hope to see you soon. Good luck.
Thanks, Theo. Awesome. See ya.
Electric Boogaloo.
All right, so we're about to get into an interview with artist Jenny420 from Tasmania. She started out as like a talented indie folk guitar strummer, but she's pretty versatile. She does a lot of cool different things. Like for her Koo show performance, she played a bit of blues, which was really awesome. And I know that she's collaborated with Becky in the past and created some really cool electronic stuff.
So can you tell me a bit about your project and how your live set works?
I think my live set kind of originates from just trying to tell a story, trying to stay true to an emotion lyrically, and then from that I collaborate with different artists like your beautiful self to put a sound behind it and try and get it into a bigger forum. So at the moment I'm still trying to grapple that big idea of a gravy baby.
Have you had any experiences lately that have influenced your songwriting and composition?
I was just talking to it with one of these beautiful girls about some natural adrenaline, some positive pressure. Yeah. You know, we've got so many different pressures all the time, and when you get a chance to have some positive pressure and some momentum behind you where you just have to be your authentic you, and I think singing and performing is a wicked space for that to be a thing, you know, where you're naked without having to take your bits off and you have to be you. And if you're not, it's very obvious. Yeah. You know? And so that's a really exciting process of just like using music as my own mirror as to, you know, where I'm at and reflecting where I'm at. That was deep, babe.
So then is it kind of like sometimes your performance influences your songwriting?
Can't let those barriers be a reason, and it's going to be hard anyway. But different influences, I don't know. It depends on what's happening around me. Like if I'm in a shitty mood and I have to perform, like the fellas are going to know I'm in a shitty mood. Otherwise, I'm going to have to pretend, and that's going to be awkward for all of us.
Yeah.
But luckily tonight I'm in a pretty good mood because I'm in Melbourne and I haven't played here before.
In your time playing gigs, have you had the opportunity to see any touring artists or like bigger artists that you've been inspired by?
Oh, definitely. I had a couple over the summer where I'll share it, where we were at Party in the Paddock.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, there's only a couple of us in the crew that are allowed behind stage, so we'll all meet at this certain time and we'll go and do it. And I got to hold down the toilet for the bass player out of Spiderbait. And I didn't know it was her, man. I didn't know it was her. And she's like doing the wee dance. And I was like, hey, I'll hold down the boys' toilets, man. Like any dudes come and they'll have to deal with me. And we had a bit of a laugh about it. And then I just went to the side of the stage where we were and she's come out, sunshine on my window.
Oh my God.
Like, that is my claim to fame. And I think the moral to that is just that everybody is everybody. We're all, one person, one story, and all of our stories combine to make one bigger, and you're a peep and I'm a peep, and even though she's played on international stages and shook hands with people I don't even want to know about, we're all one. And and it doesn't matter if you're holding down a toilet or you're on stage in front of 5,000 people. Yeah. And that's cool. And those realizations happen all the time and they're inspiring to have.
So this is your first time playing at Coup. What's your impression of the vibe?
Oh, it's so humble, man. I feel like I'm already being myself sitting here talking to you and doing that, and it's a really cute vibe. I was only explaining that it seems like a nice little, cozy nook in the middle of chaos, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I've already caught like 5 taxis, man. But no, it's humble, and it seems like a hub, which is hard to come by now. Lots of venues are all like very money orientated, and it's like it loses that community vibe of people just wanting to come together, gather, network, share, show and tell. We always want to show and tell, so it's cool to have a humble place to do that.
Yeah, that's lovely. So I'm going deep now because we want to talk about like the gender side of things. So, because you've done a lot of performing and you've played in like heaps of different states around Australia and gotten a bit of experience under your belt now, do you feel like your gender has defined your experience of performing live at all?
It's a tricky question. I think like as much as I want to rebelliously answer the question and be like, yeah, it has been hard, being a lone wolf, and I probably will go on that road for a little bit, like lone wolfing it and being a solo female artist, and it was like purely I started doing music because it was my healing and it was for me, and then to the empowerment come from somewhere where I wanted to then share that story. And I try and sit in that space of advocating, like everybody has a story, everybody's story is important, whether you're a female or a male, but it's the empowerment to do so. And I feel like we're in this crazy spot where for some reason women aren't feeling empowered enough to rise and go, all right, well, this is my story and I'm going to own it in whatever forum it is, whether their craft is cooking a fucking wicked soup or getting up and, razzing out a crowd of a couple of thousand. Like, they're all important. And I think that I've had a lot of razzes that I don't want to talk about because they're negative, where people have chipped me down or like sexualized me or, not taking me as seriously because I am a woman and I didn't know what a fucking E diminished chord was yet and I couldn't communicate. So I went and taught myself. I put myself through uni to learn how to communicate in the language that I wanted to be in, which was music. But at the same time, I think that it's like a venue. You take something, you put money to it, it loses its authenticity. But music, for me, I don't want to make money off it. I just want to use it as a forum to share my story and to inspire people to do their own. So some of the chips that I've had from being a woman in the industry have only made me more passionate and more vicious about, advocating for those things. And I had a funny question the other day. Someone's like, Danny, are you a feminist? I said, no, I'm a woman, man. Like, do you not understand that? They're not two separate things, so...
How important do you find that your image is when you're working as a performing artist?
I I think I sit in a pretty cool spot to answer that because with my identity, I'm a Palawa woman, so I have Aboriginal identity and I have English identity. And within that, I was challenged from a very young age of what my identity was and having to explain who I was and why I was that person. And it had a lot to do with my actual aesthetic look, you know, how I looked, or, you know, I didn't tick the box that they quite thought was a stereotypical vision of that. And so from a really long time, I've been an emo, I've been a punk, I've been a feral, I've had dreads, I've had a mohawk. Looked in the mirror and go, what am I going to dress up like today, and see who's going to approach me today. And it's kind of, I've used my image as a bit of a self-social experiment. You know, it's like opening a book. I'm not going to look at that book because I don't like the colour blue, but I'll pick the green one up. You know, and it's like sometimes I get approached by people differently when I look differently. And I think that's exciting because it's like I don't like being put in boxes or told that I have to conform to something, especially if, you know, today I'm feeling a little bit like crazy and pinky, so I might wear bright fucking green, you know, and if I want to do that, I will. And it all just comes down to my self-advocation of being authentically me and how I'm feeling.
Thank you so much for giving us all this wisdom and all the stories of your experience. We really
Thanks
appreciate
for having me. Biggest love.
Look at Boogaloo.
So thanks for tuning into this episode of Electric Boogaloo. We'll see you guys next time.
Swiggity, swaggity, swaggity.